On this episode of Money and Power, we talk about the notorious RBG, Trump swipes right on another dictator, and Ariana loves screaming beavers. But first, Kid Inc.
I got the money and the power. Yeah. Once you get a little, they just wanna take you down, cuz we've been going hard for too long. Can't get enough, what is you on? Yeah. Really ain't nothing I can drop that. Wake up in the morning, make it all okay.
Welcome to episode 14 of Money and Power, our weekly look at questions related to finance, politics, and culture. I am your host, Nathan Martin, and joining me from Michigan, a financial consultant, a host of the Rob Talks Money podcast, and the human calculator, Rob Johnson.
Howdy.
And joining me in studio here in the crown jewel of rural Ohio, a patriot's wet dream and a tyrant's worst nightmare, Jeremiah Martin.
What's up?
Together, we are the trio of talk, the triad of the tittle-tattle, and the triumvirate of the tete-a-tete. How are you gentlemen doing?
This Polar Express has already gone off the rails.
We usually last until 30 seconds in, but
yeah, we're calling.
As you can tell by my voice being an octave lower than it usually is, I'm a little under the weather, so we're going to try to get through this.
I thought that was just your best Rob Johnson impression.
It was.
Ooh.
It was. I definitely invested some training time.
Can you just say "I love MASH" a couple times, and then we'll get the real feel for it?
I love MASH.
Wow, impeccable.
It's like I'm
MASH
in the room.
is life.
MASH is life. That's ridiculous. MASH is a part of life. It's not the whole ball game.
No, listen. You would so wear a T-shirt. If I got you a T-shirt that said "MASH is life," you would wear it.
Well, I already
Don't
have
even-
one, so you can just save your money. You know, my wife for Father's Day, she got me a MASH T-shirt.
We need to make those T-shirts and put them up on our store.
Yeah.
Not that we have a podcast store, but if we ever get one.
MASH is life. The
Yeah.
rest is just details.
Absolutely.
Do you remember those shirts? It was like,
Yeah.
insert ridiculous sport here. The rest is just details. It's like
Yeah.
lacrosse is life. It's like, whatever, loser. It is not.
What was that one episode? One movie that had lacrosse. The kid was like a lacrosse star. Was that She's All That?
You're asking the wrong guy.
No. Yeah,
Okay.
no idea, Nathan.
Man, every time I try to drag you guys further into pop culture, you guys just start drowning profusely, and I have to come back ashore. So
I will say,
All right.
you use the word pop pretty loosely with reference to culture. It's not really that popular. It's more like, like 90s films that went straight to DVD that only 6 people saw. But apparently I'm supposed to know about it.
okay, first of all, She's All That was not. It was like a cultural phenomenon, and second, and I watched it with the youth group. Our church youth group convinced my mom to take us, and so I had to watch that with my mother.
This just in: cultural phenomenon from 1999. So you're right.
Did that have Amanda Bynes in it?
No,
No, that's She's the Man.
Okay.
Yeah.
See?
She's All That had Freddie Prinze Jr.
Oh, okay.
and he was bet by a couple guys. Paul Walker's in it.
All right,
Paul Walker and who played Psych, the sidekick in Psych. Nope. Okay. Never mind.
I know who you're talking about, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
I can't remember his name. Anyways, yeah. So Paul Walker was a jerk friend of Freddie Prinze Jr. He bets him that he can't get just anyone, to be the prom queen. So they pick a lovely loser who, of course, cleans up gorgeously.
Sure.
And becomes the prom queen.
That storyline's not overdone.
At all.
What was
I mean,
it like?
in 1999, it probably wasn't.
It definitely was. What was it like seeing that movie all by yourself with an empty theater?
It was packed, man. I'm telling you.
It was not. Packed.
He said it wasn't by himself. He already said he watched it with.
No, I know.
With his mom.
Yeah, one row of
and the
people,
youth group.
and then a sea of empty chairs.
I'm telling you. Look up the IMDb on that. See how much it made. It made quite a bit. Anyways.
No, moving on.
We got to move on.
This is ridiculous. All right. So it is now time for our look back at the weird, the inane, and the general happenings going on in the world by the crazy people who live here and not 1999. News bits.
News bits. Show me your bits of news.
All right, Jeremiah. What do you got?
All right. So this has been a little bit of ongoing news over the past month or so. In case you guys missed it, IHOP pulled the wool over many people's eyes by claiming to have changed its name to IHOB with a B, and the B standing for burgers. Well, this article from the Durango Herald might just have my favorite headline of late. It's, did the B in IHOB stand for betrayal? So it's just a couple interesting things. So about a month ago, IHOP said that they were planning on changing their name to IHOB with a B. So first of all, they started that off with a guessing game on Twitter of what the B was going to stand for, people giving, ridiculous answers to that. But then they announced that it was going to be burgers, highlighting their summer burger menu. And then recently, within the last week, they came out and said, actually, no, just kidding. It is not, we're not changing our name. So they said in a tweet, that's right, IHOP. We'd never turn our back on pancakes, except for that one time we faked it to promote our new burgers. And then they rolled that into a pancake deal on the day we're recording this, Tuesday, a stack of 3 pancakes for 60 cents. And so they have just been getting all sorts of earned media from this, and they've just been consistently in the news over the last month. Now people have been talking about what this actually accomplishes, what will this actually result in profits, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, they've gained millions of dollars of earned media for this, not just one stunt, but just kind of this ongoing promotion over the last month, and I think it's pretty interesting. Have you guys been keeping up with this, and what do you guys think?
So, what I got out of this is that they faked having a hot girlfriend so that the school would think it's popular, and that he'd be able to get other girlfriends. Also, a really good movie cliche in the teen drama series from the 1990s.
Fair enough. So the real question is, will IHOP end up getting any hot girlfriends as a result of this?
No, we've seen this movie before. It doesn't work out. Then, because the girl sort of falls for him, but then he gets too big for his britches and then ends up alone with nobody.
Rob, what do you think, as far, coming from a marketing perspective, what do you think about this whole situation?
I thought it was genius. I thought that whoever orchestrated that, what was originally a small marketing campaign that blew up, it had everyone talking about it. Everyone was so upset, so outraged that they flipped the P upside down, and it was ridiculous. But it got so much attention, so much so that even chains like Burger King were changing their name to like Pancake King, and people were giving them tons of free social media, as well as the 24-hour news networks covered it. So it's genius. Well done, IHOP. I think your food sucks, but that was a really good marketing campaign.
My favorite response was Wendy's was asked its opinion. And of course, they've got a infamous Twitter handle at this point. But Wendy's responded, not really afraid of the burgers from a place that decided pancakes were too hard. So,
Yes.
a lot of fun there. But it's funny because I've listened to a couple podcasts where they've been talking about this, and the question that they ultimately come to is is this going to relate to profits? Did it really accomplish anyone? Their thought was, is anyone going to be driving down the road and see an IHOP sign or an IHOP billboard and be like, oh, they did the funny thing with the burgers last year. Are we going to go there? And the answer to that is to be determined, but I think it is kind of an unfair standard that people don't hold traditional media to. If someone has a commercial on TV, or you pass a billboard, or even just a normal social media campaign, no one's really holding it to this standard. Like, oh, within 2 weeks, did it affect their affect their bottom line? Did it affect their, return on investment? And so I think it's interesting. I think that, most people come out of this situation with a better view of IHOP. I know personally, my family loves IHOP. My kids love IHOP. We'll take them there for pancakes occasionally. And a couple weeks ago, in the middle of this is obviously just anecdotal, but we took the kids to IHOP for pancakes, and my wife and I were like, hey, you want to split a burger? So we tried a burger. Also, maybe this is unpopular opinion, I don't know. I don't really care, but I love burgers with eggs on them. So any burger you throw an egg on there, I'm pretty much going to enjoy it. And they had a really impressive kind of a breakfast burger, and it was delicious.
It's my favorite Five Guys secret menu order, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you with the egg on the burger. I honestly, I've never had IHOP's food, so the food sucks thing was just a joke. But never even stepped foot in one before. Does it?
I'm not a fan.
Okay.
I'm not a fan. I'm mainly not a fan because I don't have peanut butter for my pancakes. But.
Okay. All right. Well, write them a letter. So I think that they are definitely going to see an ROI on that campaign. Not only because they gained so many more followers on social media, but I think that's going to just get people to come in and try it just because of the success of the campaign. So even if it's like a short-term spike, I think it's going to ultimately be successful.
Yeah, no, I agree. Even just the novelty side of it. But I mean, once again, what did they actually spend on the promotion? It basically was a press release, a couple tweets, and that's it.
No, they probably paid somebody in some marketing ad firm to come up with it.
Fair enough, but it wasn't like a Super Bowl ad, or it wasn't a a massive billboard campaign to hit the major metro centers of the United States. Comparatively, it was a press release and a couple tweets. And so, yeah, even if they get some business off the novelty side of it, it's ultimately going to be, ROI positive. So
and they were kind of the first ones to do it. So now you're going to see a whole bunch of copycats. Is typically what happens. It's kind of like when Wendy's. You alluded to Wendy's Twitter.
Right.
They're known for basically people like go up to be like, roast me, Wendy's. And, so they'll do it. And it's gained a tremendous amount of ROI for them and their social platforms.
For sure. But
now you have other restaurants and stuff trying to emulate that and going brash or whatever. And, if you're going to do something like this, be the first to the market. So people always say, oh, well, that's what Wendy's does, right. Oh, that's what IHOP did, and then you're the reference point. You're kind of the sticking point in the cultural icon type.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's where I got my idea to just be a jerk on Twitter.
Wendy's.
Yeah, I mean, if someone follows me, I'm like, look at this turd.
Yeah.
I've said for years that McDonald's could easily raise their profits by at least 15%. If they went back to classic packaging from the 50s. That's all they got to do. Go back to classic packaging from the 50s. People will go there. Guaranteed.
Interesting.
A little retro.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, right now they have now they're like selling salads and like premium burgers, and it takes 4 hours to get food apparently. And,
well, what they've started doing in some areas, they've actually started painting their stores to resemble the local school colors.
Like Applebee's.
Yeah, so it's been kind of interesting. I've seen a couple different McDonald's that aren't. They obviously have the traditional coloration, but like on one side it will have basically the colors of the local team, like blue and yellow or whatever. So interesting. All right, Rob.
So I'm going to pull back the curtain. I didn't even prepare for a news bit. I emailed you guys one, but I didn't do any follow-up on it. So I'm going to talk about something that I did read today that was irritating, which was Trump's first year budget deficit is going to come in at about $1 trillion for a rolling 12-month calendar. This is irritating. My problem with conservatives is through the whole campaign, you heard Trump say, "We're going to lower the budget. We're gonna make so much money you're gonna get sick of winning." I would just like to win a couple of times. I would like to win financially just a couple of times as Americans and actually have like this little word we're not familiar with called a surplus. I think that would be cool. The irritating thing is that we have so many tools to cut the budget from a federal perspective, but it's all about spending. He has people on his cabinet that blow their budgets, just their own personal budgets for their cabinets. They can't even stick within those. It's like once you get into office, right, money becomes irrelevant, and it's frustrating. So the label of conservative should not really be thrown out when you're talking about Trump as far as like a fiscal conservative, because he is implementing policy like these tax cuts, and he's not promoting any policy to offset the lost revenue from the tax cuts, and it's frustrating. Is there
really a rash of people that are throwing conservative around when it comes to Trump?
Yes. I saw. So I know you're going to talk about this with your news bit, but like what with So this is a quick preview. Even with the outrage over that, people were defending him as if he's Mother Teresa and like the chief.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like if you're a Trump supporter, great. Like I want him to do well. I voted for him reluctantly, just because I couldn't vote for someone who was for pulling a baby halfway out of the womb and then killing it. I just couldn't do that more consciously. If you voted for him, great, but you have to be able to criticize him fairly and not just be on the Trump train where everything he's pooping gold everywhere he goes.
It's balls and strikes, right? And that's what we've said a long time, and I think we've done that pretty fairly on this podcast. Calling balls and strikes, and we'll applaud what's worth applauding, and we'll try to roast what needs roasting. But that's called accountability. I think your point is well taken. I do think, and I'm not defending it, but cutting federal deficits is a lot harder than people think it is. And so I think we should let's put that on the calendar. I think we should dedicate a whole main topic to the federal budgets and deficits, and some kind of ideas to be able to do that. I think definitely we need a balanced budget amendment. The problem, I mean, you'd have to have a balanced budget amendment, and the reason why is because a vast majority of our federal spending is already pre-spent. It's entitlements.
Yeah,
it's only getting bigger,
which is
so
fine.
Discretionary spending. I mean, you could almost move discretionary spending to zero and still be running a federal deficit. That's almost to where we're at. And I think by 2021, that's where we'll be at. If we move discretionary spending to zero, we would still be running a federal deficit.
And then here's what I would say too about the campaign that Trump the campaign that Trump ran. I would push back a little bit that I don't necessarily think that he was running as a fiscal conservative. In fact, he was pushing for, $1 trillion worth of infrastructure spending. He ran on these things. And so I think that there's a lot of reasons that people voted for him. I don't think that fiscal conservatism is one of them. So in my mind, at least, that's kind of, we're getting what I expected on that front, at least. I don't know how much he ran on that front.
I think he ran on it a lot because he was touted as the businessman that could come in under budget, ahead of schedule. And he said, even as far back as like the early 2000s when he was talking about running as an independent, he said, this country, this is his quote, could make one hell of a lot of money if they just negotiated their contracts better. There's no reason we should have a deficit. And that was a platform that people really dug because he was a businessman, regardless of, his 14 bankruptcies and, his smart bankruptcy plan, which is absurd. But I do think that he did attract a lot of people because of his acumen for business.
Well, there's a difference between campaigning and governing. And that's the issue, right? So as a consultant, I always say that we campaign in poetry and we govern in prose, and seldom to the twain meet. And again, that's just a fact. People are not policy wonks. People don't respond to policy type speeches. They respond to poetry, and they respond to a certain feeling that a candidate's going to get them and give them. So what was that feeling when it came to the 2016 campaign? That was a feeling of, I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to be in your corner. There are a bunch of reasons why you're not doing as well. You're not as well off as you deserve to be, and they are outside your control. And I'm going to try to take that swamp down, and I'm going to be in your corner fighting for you. That's what resonated. And so none of the policy is going to come from that. But when you get into governance, you actually have to govern in prose, because you can't govern in poetry. And that's what we're seeing a little bit with Trump. So I always say we campaign in poetry and we govern in prose, and you can't flip them, because if you campaign in prose, you're going to lose. And if you govern in poetry, long term you're going to lose, because at the end you have to have some intellectual basis for your policy agenda. We saw this a little bit with the Obama administration. A lot of times they tried to govern in poetry. So what we have is back-to-back presidents who are really good at campaigning. Like it or not, Trump was really good at campaigning. Obama was magnificent at campaigning. Both of those presidents actually prefer campaigning because they prefer poetry. But what we've seen, what we saw in the Obama years and what we've seen thus far with mixed results, we can nitpick here or there, is presidents who are just not interested in governing in prose. And that is it led to issues in the Obama years. It's leading to issues now in the Trump years. And so you have to hope that there are people behind the scenes that are able to do the prose and do the dirty work of prose and actual governance, and then let the figureheads kind of do what they do best. And so it's not something that's just specific, Rob, to the Trump presidency. I think it's something that's seen over and over again. I mean, if you've ever met a really charismatic politician at the local level, and then they get into office and they're just incapable of doing anything that they said they were going to do. Now, is it because they were a liar? No, and I think sometimes we give politicians a bad rap because we think they're actually misleading. Sometimes it's just you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes you think that legislating and governance is a lot easier than it actually is. And then you get elected, and you take an oath of office, and then you look around and you realize that there are other people who took the exact same oath of office, have competing agendas. And how are you actually going to get this stuff done? And again, I think that's a feature, not a bug, of our republic. But that's just, it's there's always going to be that natural tension, I guess, Rob, is my main point.
I guess, but I think, like, think about it this way: like Trump's campaign, he campaigned on a lot of things that people haven't campaigned on before. He was very original, which is why I think a lot of middle class, blue collar workers gravitated towards him. So my theory,
yeah, because they believed he was going to fight for them,
right? Yeah,
but and if you poll those same people, he has very high poll numbers with them.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. That's not where I'm going with this. I think you can take that out to an even farther logical extension to say that if you have someone who understands that competing policies are going to happen once you take that oath, and that you can frame it as this is what we're going to attempt once we get in, rather than this is exactly what I'm going to do. Now, that doesn't sound as sexy on the campaign trail, but I think that raw honesty of this is how politics work, this is how I'm going to go in and try and fix it, that really resonated with a lot of people. So I think taking that to the next logical extension of pulling the veil back and saying, well, this is what is actually going on, I think people like that. I think people like seeing the actual backroom stuff and how it goes on. And Trump exposed a lot of that, which is why a lot of people like him.
Yeah.
So, sorry, we can move on to the next one. I just, that was my, I just hate debt. So we can go on.
Well, I think we're all pretty much deficit hawks here on the podcast, but there are some fiscal realities that we're going to have to start facing as Americans sooner than later. And a lot of it is around of our entitlements. I mean, it's when you do a budget, right? I'm assuming that you say, hey, we're going to prioritize, keeping the house and keeping clothing and keeping food, right? That's typically what budgets do, prioritize first.
Yep.
And then we kind of let the other chips fall where they may. The problem is that it would almost be, well, it would almost be like if a personal household signed on for debt, that they would move to the front of the line if you declare bankruptcy or something, right? So we're the priority for you. That's kind of what entitlements have done, to the point that we're getting to a point very quickly where we can't focus on the house and the clothing and the food. We have to focus on this other thing.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be some pain points coming up. And it's math, and sometimes math sucks. So,
word.
All right. So my news bit, Trump had another summit with another dictator. So he went on to a dictator Tinder and swiped right and found him another one.
Justin Trudeau?
No, not Justin Trudeau.
Oh.
He is maniacal up there, though. I don't trust him as far as I could throw him. Listen, that's a bridge too far. As soon as Trump has a summit with Justin Trudeau, then we know.
I'm moving to Canada. If that happens.
I like how out of all three,
people.
Justin Trudeau is the most probably level-headed of the three. But it's like, if he has a summit with that guy, I'm done.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know about him being level-headed. But anyway, so Trump and Putin had a little summit, and Trump has since come out and said he misspoke. But at the time, he stated that he had no reason to not believe Putin when he said that why in the world would Russia do anything with our elections and stuff? So it's set the world on fire, or at least Twitter. And so I was, you guys can attest to this. I was at an amusement park, so I didn't have my phone on, and all of a sudden I'm like, it's towards the end of the day. I'm like, I'm gonna check in on Twitter, see what's going on. And so you guys know the little gif of that little baby that comes around the corner, and he like just like has a shock face, and he quickly tries to like backpedal out of the room. He's like, that's how I felt going on Twitter. That's exactly how I felt. I was like, what in the world happened? People were like treason and all this stuff. So, I'm gonna take a little different tack. I'm gonna touch on this a little bit. We did touch on this when we had our foreign policy discussion with China, that setting up a pivot point with Russia and China is not a bad idea when it comes to foreign policy, because what we don't want to do is alienate Russia so that they go into the arms of China. So that's kind of just a brief thing. That I happen to agree with that. However, like we've always said on this podcast, two things can be true at once. You can say that we shouldn't have a 1980s Cold War adversarial relationship with Russia because it could push them into China. At the same time, you can say that it doesn't make sense to defend them or appear to defend them as vigorously as the president appeared to be doing. So those two things can be equal at the same time. I think it was obviously a mistake. He's backtracked and said, he said he would, and it should have been wouldn't. He misspoke. I mean, I'm sure that's just, I saw tons of leftists on Twitter immediately start apologizing for, thinking bad of him. No, I'm joking. Didn't go well.
Trump misspoke. Like
Yeah.
we apologize. I know we said that we're going to be thrust into Nazi Germany, but I take that back. I'm sorry.
Well, so here's the other thing too, right? Like, you just imagine that there's some people. I just don't understand what some people are thinking. Hey, he said something that even his supporters are going to disagree with. You know what? Let's start saying that it's like the crystal knock. Like, what is going? Like, I don't understand what some people are thinking that way tactically. Like, they're on the left, so there's an election coming up, so keep on going, leftists. I mean, one of my friends on Facebook, he kind of said it best. He's like, imagine a Democrat Party who hadn't spent the last 3 months saying that every little thing that Republicans were doing were, like Nazi Germany, and how they could have capitalized on this moment, yet they're not going to be able to because they've kind of split that capital. So those two things can be true at once. It can also be true that from a Trump administration's standpoint, it can also be simultaneously true that they feel this investigation is a witch hunt, and they feel that Russia did, of course, try to meddle in our elections because, of course, they're Russia. So they're thinking that the investigation is outside the scope of the investigation because there's no collusion with Americans with Russians. All the indictments have happened with Russians. No Americans have been indicted. There's been no direct link or indictments showing any kind of direct link with collusion for an actual American on this behalf. It's like, oh, Russians did bad Russian things. Imagine that shock face. Like, one doesn't lead to the other. And so people are like, oh, he's saying it's a witch hunt. Well, from their standpoint politically, it is, because they don't feel collusion took place. Now, obviously, that investigation is going to play out, but those two things can be true at the same time. You can think that the investigation is legitimately a witch hunt, at the same time thinking that Russia did bad things during the election. I happen to think Russia did bad things in the election. We know they poisoned some people in Britain. They've proven over and over and over again they're not to be trusted on the world stage. However, they are a major player on the world stage, and what we can't afford is a Russian empire. So it is a delicate balance. And I know that we have some people in the foreign policy department who have their heads and wits about them. and I'm kind of trusting that process.
This is another perfect example of what we were talking about earlier, Nathan, as it relates to calling balls and strikes. When you are willing to call balls and strikes, especially when the player is on your quote unquote team, you earn the credibility to then call balls and strikes. But the left has been calling nothing but strikes over and over and over and over again, and you get used to it. You get immune to it. And so then when there is something that Trump does that is, cringeworthy or probably shouldn't have done that, no one takes it seriously. And they've lost all credibility to what is actually going on. It goes back to this idea, if everyone's racist, no one's a racist. If everyone's a bigot, no one's a bigot. If every single thing that Trump does is Nazi Germany, well, then nothing he does is nothing he does is Nazi Germany. Nothing he does is worth criticizing. You see people, someone posted on Facebook a couple days ago, not related to this, but they're like, they said something I thought that was really poignant. And they said, if you compare Trump to Hitler, you know nothing about Trump nor Hitler. And
Right.
then he posted as a comment, and he's not a Trump supporter, and he said, also, if you guys can stop being so crazy and taking everything to the extreme, because I'm really getting sick of having to defend Trump. So people that don't even support Trump in many cases are feeling the need to defend him, that it's like, okay, maybe this was dumb, but this is not a Pearl Harbor event.
Listen, the craziness is crazy, but if I'm going to assign crazy level meter, like the crazy level meter on the left, it far outpaces the crazy level meter of Trump. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, case in point. So on Twitter, there was a Russian informant or something that was indicted. All right. Something, whatever. She had red hair. So somebody goes on some White House photos and finds somebody who looks Caucasian with red hair, and I guess looks a little Russian, and says, "Hey, this is a blue-checked journalist who posts this on her Twitter account saying this is the Russian agent in the White House right behind Trump." And so then Twitter goes ballistic, right? So then they're showing, oh, hey, I have a new one. And it's like Rocky and Bullwinkle with the Russian lady. And then someone said, oh, hey, here's I've seen Trump with a redhead too, and it's he's on stage with all the Miss Universe, and there was like the Ireland is right behind him, and she's has red hair, and it's like people went, but the point's completely lost because it was flat out stupid. Yep. It turned out to be a staffer at the National Senate Committee, easily verifiable, and they run with it. And then journalists think, oh, why do they keep on saying fake news? It's ridiculous. Right. Well, because you guys have lower credibility ratings in America right now than Congress does. So
right.
Please tell me how you guys are the arbiters of balls and strikes here. You guys are leftists. Most journalists vote heavy liberal, not even democratic, almost socialist, and we're supposed to trust them with news that they're giving us when they've been feeding us narratives for a long, long, long time. And now people are to the point where they just aren't even reading the news. They literally aren't getting their news from any kind of quote unquote journalistic source. And whose fault is that? In a free market sense, it's not the individual's fault. That's the journalist's fault.
I'll blame Obama. I think that I like it, right? I think that the outrage, like you alluded to earlier, Nathan, I want the left to go as crazy as they can, because like it or not, I want someone who is pro-life, even if he's somewhat conservative and doesn't and recognizes states' rights over big government. I'm cool with that, because I don't want there to be a day when we have a completely, not even Democrat, but a completely liberally controlled government. I don't think that would be very helpful to the world, let alone the people that live here. But I think what Trump said was dopey, first of all. And for him going to say would versus wouldn't, that is obviously a spin. That's not him making an error on stage. He said what he said because that's his opinion. And he wasn't being coached at the time. So it was that area where he's brutally honest with what he thinks, and he's trying to score points with Putin, which is odd. But I did see a lot of people show me that they have no idea what treason means, which is cool. Because that was trending for it probably still is, but like Trump treason, and I'm like, are you guys high? Like, what's going on here? Like, you can criticize someone without taking it to like the nth degree and being like, he's the Benedict Arnold of our time. I was like, did you guys read a history book? What are you doing over there?
Or do you understand how our government works? Like, the president has great leeway when it comes to our foreign policy on behalf of the country. So a president can when it comes to foreign policy, a president can practically literally never commit treason. So
exactly,
people just don't understand, and yeah, it's just I think there would be a lot of people in the middle of the road who would be more willing to listen to a moderate view of why Republicans' policies aren't good for America in their view, if it just wasn't couched in a bunch of hate and absolute craziness. So, all right, Jeremiah, do you want to go ahead and do the sponsor? Who's bringing all this wonderful deliciousness that we're spewing today?
Well, if our listeners have been with us for any length of time, they'll know that Nathan, you introduced me in some very interesting ways at times, and I've had people come up to me and ask me, Jeremiah, how do you manage to be a student, a construction worker, a chaplain, a teacher, a nonprofit director, a soldier, and an all-around rabble-rouser all at once? Not to mention a husband, a father, and just an all-around good guy.
It's an excellent question. How do you do it?
How do I manage to keep all of these proverbial balls in the air, juggling them all at once? I tell you what, it is not easy. But you know what gets me through? Strike Force Energy. And today, this episode is brought to you by Strike Force Energy. StrikeForceEnergy.com. You can go there, and they've got some great products, all liquid beverage enhancers in a tiny tin pouch. Pour it into a bottle of water, pour it into your beverage of choice, and it will give you the energy that you need to make all of your dreams come true.
Amen.
So go to StrikeForceEnergy.com. You can use coupon code MAP for 20% off all of your orders. And as Rob has mentioned so eloquently at times in the past, the more you buy, the more you save. So use MAP as a coupon code for 20% all of your orders at StrikeForceEnergy.com. We really appreciate them supporting the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm drinking Strike Force Energy right now. I think you're drinking Strike Force Energy.
That's right.
Now. Something we use and we believe in. And I'm getting up at 5 a.m. trying to teach Chinese kids English, and I need all the energy I can get.
I put it in my burp.
I will say,
It's really good.
On a feedback note, I know we're not to feedback yet, but on a feedback note, I got some really great feedback on my my tagline. It's impossible to be lit AF without energy. And I think we really need to take it to Strike Force Energy. I think they could do a whole campaign on that.
Yeah.
There you go.
I put it in my bourbon, and it helps me to not have like a down. It brings me back up. Because alcohol is a depressant, so it kind of takes the depressant out of alcohol, which is nice.
I get it. Taking the uppers and the downers at the same time. That sounds like a recipe for success, if you ask me.
I think that's actually like cocaine, isn't it? Isn't that what cocaine
next,
with alcohol?
Well, next week
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
Part 4 of the leadership series, we're going to be discussing why alcohol is a viable option for good leadership. So stay tuned for that.
Absolutely. So we do. Speaking of which, so it is our leadership series. It's our leadership month, and we wanted to do a leadership flair with a very popular segment of ours, meme busters. Jeremiah, as per usual, what meme are we busting this week?
All right. Yeah, Nathan. So our meme this week, doing a leadership themed meme busters. Nathan, you found this meme online, and it simply says, it's just kind of a macro image that says, good leadership is all about goal setting. So I did post this meme on Facebook and Twitter, and so if you want to, you can go to the socials and check that out. But good leadership is all about goal setting. So what do you think, guys? Is that true? Is it all about goal setting?
I mean, goal setting is the very beginning point, but that has nothing to do with leadership per se as it does with supervising and helping out people. Okay. Anybody can do goal setting. The trick to leadership, I'm trying to formulate my thought here, but the trick to leadership isn't goal setting. The trick to leadership is going for a goal for your organization or your family, and people are actually following you.
Right.
To get that goal done. Right? That's leadership. If you don't have anybody actually following you to get those goals done, then you're not a leader. You're just a dude with a goal, which, I mean, is cool. Goal setting, I guess, is really viable and good, and you kind of have to have a roadmap, but that's not the end all.
Yeah, I think if the goal is just to get from point A to point B, then yes, you need to set goals, you need to track goals, you need to have a way to measure those goals to ensure that all along the way you are getting from point A to point B. But, and as you mentioned, Nathan, how you get there, I think, is also incredibly important. Because number one, you can get to point B and you're there, but the rest of the organization has been left behind, to your point. Right. But you could also just be a dictator, maybe a benevolent dictator, but you can just have that kind of iron fist type leadership where, you've brought people from A to B, but they hate your guts, and they have. You've negated all of the leadership laws that we've talked about up to this point, including, the golden rule and empathy, etc. So, maybe it's a part of leadership, but I don't know if it's all about goal setting.
Yeah. Rob?
Yeah, I would say that it's not just about goal setting, but it's really important for leaders. So that's the trouble with that's why I'm not a big fan of people saying, well, this one line is the secret to anything. It's like the secret to financial success is saving 10% of your money. It's like, no, it's not. There's nothing like that's not even a fraction of a key to the success of doing well with money. Just like with leadership, it's not just about goal setting. It's not just about being able to organize and execute strategies or being a good character developer. It's all of those things, which is why leadership isn't easy. Leadership is extremely difficult. Being a good leader is very hard. And if it was so easy to reduce it down to a pithy quote or a stupid meme, then everyone would be a rockin' leader. But as you can see, not a lot of people are. So I'm not really a fan of the one line catchphrases with, you know, the motivational, this is how you do it in 60 seconds or less. That's gonna help you fail much quicker than it is gonna help you succeed.
Absolutely. So once again, meme busted. All right. Good job, you guys. All right. What you are about to hear is part 3 of my talk on leadership, specifically dealing with the 5 laws of relationship. We'll be listening to these and expounding on them and how they relate to our various fields. And so we are talking about this week showing yourself friendly and what that means. Which leads us to the third law of relationship. Show yourself friendly. And this comes from Proverbs 18:24. A man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And so what are we talking about here? We're talking about mutual benefit. You know, mutual benefit is an economic principle that means a win-win situation. Relational development means always looking for mutual benefit. We are always looking to add value to others around us. Now, do your friends, so I'm going to ask a simple question, do your friends feel that they are in a win-win situation with you? What value do you try to offer them on a regular basis? So the first lesson here is that sore losers never prosper. All right? Especially when it comes to celebrating a person's success. So we talked a little bit about rejoicing when others rejoice, and so this is kind of a branch off of that. A lot of us are very competitive by nature, especially if you have a business. If you're an entrepreneur in this room, you're trying to lead people, you're competitive by nature. Now, we talked about that competition is not bad. That sometimes there are winners and losers. That's not bad. But the point of relationship is not quote-unquote winning. The point of relationship is relationship. You know, a marriage that starts keeping score is a marriage that is headed towards disaster. And a friendship that starts keeping score is not really a friendship for long. But when you make the conscious decision to celebrate other people's victories and show yourself friendly, it allows you to focus on what you need to do in your life without keeping up with the Joneses or your friend or your coworker. And the greatest thing is that you will still be around when your friends and coworkers really need you. And they need you when tragedy strikes. We talked about this, mourning with others mourn. So this is just an extension of that. But showing yourself friendly will lead to that friendship. Now, lesson number 2 is a lot of times people who are lonely for a reason. Now, this one stings. But the lonely people that I've encountered have typically had quote-unquote personality issues or some other excuse of why they are that way. What I see most of the time is a harsh reality. A recluse or someone who has chosen to meet those around them as things to be conquered and not relationships to be maintained. Again, it is a recluse or someone who has chosen to meet those around them as things to be conquered and not relationships to be maintained. Man, that's harsh. But a person who shows himself friendly will have friends. You know, I tell my kids all the time when you're in a new environment and they're like, well, I'm having trouble making friends. I'm like, are you showing yourself friendly? Well, I don't know. Are you ministering to, are you talking to the person who other people aren't talking to? Are you reaching out? Are you involving yourself? Are you imparting yourself? Are you adding value to those around you? In short, if you were to disappear tomorrow, would others miss the value and contribution that you have added? And that's harsh. But none of us want to be lonely. Truly lonely. But a lot of time business leaders they're the loneliest people in their company. And a lot of that is because, we've been told this lie in business and leadership that, you shouldn't be friends with those that are underneath you, that you should maintain a level of separation. And why? Why was that talked about? Why is that talked about as an actual leadership benefit? Because that works when transaction is the name of the game. Because if you have distance, it's easy to fire somebody. If you have distance, it's easy to make a quote-unquote business decision regardless of who it affects or destroys. But if you have proximity, if you have closeness, if you have friendship, those decisions become more and more and more difficult. But relationship cares about relationship, not winning. Which leads us to our third law of transaction. Rejecting relationship is the same as embracing transaction. Wow. And what this simply means is that you don't have to embrace a transactional mindset, because I guarantee you there are people out in this audience today who are saying, you know what? I don't have a transactional mindset. I love people. I don't have a transactional mindset. I'm not a business leader. I'm not out there trying to rake people over the coals. But you realize in your life you are not embracing relationship. You're not embracing imparting value into others around you. And what I'm trying to get through today is that if you are not embracing relationship, so if you are rejecting relationship, then the default is that you are embracing transaction, whether you realize it or not. It is a dichotomy. There are two choices, relational or transactional. And if you are rejecting relationship, you are embracing transaction by default. Relationships can be messy, and there certainly can be pain, but it is important to note that one simply cannot be passive and expect relationship to happen. There simply is no neutral in relationship building. You are either growing or you are dying in your relationship. You are either growing or you are dying in your relationships. And the only way to grow is the relational. The quickest way to kill your relationships is the transactional. All right, so that's the kind of the third part, and we're talking about showing yourself friendly. Guys, what did you guys think about that?
One of the things that stuck out to me as I was listening to that again, I think I missed it the first time I listened, but as I was listening again, you mentioned marriages that keep score, and ultimately, marriages that keep score probably aren't going to last very long, or they're gonna struggle. They're gonna have issues. I've come across this idea of people say marriages should be 50-50. It should be a 50-50 endeavor, and then I've heard other people kind of take a different take on that. It's like, well, no, it shouldn't be 50-50. Both spouses should give 100%, and different variations of that. But ultimately, I think that the model is flawed when you're looking at that. When you're looking at it as a percentage, as this is what I give, this is what you give, because ultimately it comes back to keeping score, and that's a problem. I think that's a recipe for disaster. And so the fact that you hit on that was, I think, significant. Kind of one of the things that I pointed out.
Yeah, I think that this is, out of the three that we've done so far, I think this is one that people might look at and say, this is the hardest line to walk. Because this really is a testament of subjectivity when it comes to business leadership. Because when you have a larger corporation, for example, the company that I work with, balancing friendships and treating the business as a business is a very difficult thing to do. So this is where the test of an actual leader comes into play. So having friendships and leveraging those friendships in a way that works for both people is a good thing. But having a friendship in an atmosphere where there are other people around and you have maybe raised one friend up over other employees, that's when things might get difficult. Same thing with competition. Yeah. So this is, I agree with everything that you said in the talk, Nathan, but I think this is the one where people will find the hardest line to walk for being a leader, because it is tough to balance relationships and also to balance not only the friendships within an organization, but also to balance friendships from a competitive perspective as well, because a lot of people want to keep competition intact with also having a relationship with those competitors, which is very tough, if not impossible, to do sometimes.
Yeah, and it is. So I do want to kind of, because you really touched on a touch point, and I kind of want to expound on that I wasn't able to do in the talk, for the little snippet of the talk that's there. When you have a relational mindset, so I did mention it's kind of easier to fire people you have distance from. Mm-hmm. Okay, and what I mean by that is kind of the harshness of it. But there are times where you have a relationship with somebody, and if we're looking at what mutual benefit, there are some times where this person who is under you is in the wrong position, and they're I think it's entre leadership. I've seen it before, but they say it's the wrong seat on the bus, right? They're in the wrong seat on the bus, and so you have to try to find the right seat on the bus. And for some people, the right seat on the bus is not on the bus, right? But if you allow people to stay on the bus and it's not what's best for them, then that's poor management as well. And sometimes it's you being able to look someone in the eye and say, you know what? I still love you, but you can't be on this bus. And I'll try to help you out however I can, whether it's references or trying to get you somewhere else. But this is just not the right fit. And you're absolutely right, Rob. It is a difficult balancing act. But I will say, for those out there who are willing to take the kind of the leap into the relational versus the transactional, I think it's the only way to really have true equity and win-win situations throughout your organization on a consistent basis, because that trust is built up too, and that trust is kind of the oil that kind of helps the engine run smoothly when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I think too, when you do have someone who is in the wrong role, you mentioned mutual benefit, but actually leaving someone in the wrong role, the wrong position, can actually be mutual harm. And you're not benefiting the organization, and you're not benefiting that individual, because they're not seeing their full potential played out in a role where they can feel fulfilled and actually, be at their best. And this is an area where I see a couple of the different principles that we've talked about, coming into play. And, the golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated. If the roles were reversed, would you want someone, just for the sake of being quote unquote kind, leaving you in a position that's really not a good fit? Or would you prefer that they take you under their wing and help you get to a better place, either in that role, or if there are, kind of hard skills that we can build up to, help you be equipped to fill that role, or put you in a different role, or realize that, hey, maybe this isn't the right bus for you. And if it's me, that's a hard decision to have. But number one, that's an easier conversation to have if you have that relationship, as opposed to just, firing outright, or, ending on poor terms just because they're not a fit for that role.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think that a lot of people are afraid to take that step and do that because they don't. I know for me, like I've had that situation where I've looked at someone and said, well, maybe this isn't for you. But the hesitation, at least for me, lied within, is it this is the best he's going to do? Or if I tell him, is he going to have a tremendous amount of self-doubt and not want to do anything else because of that, because he was so unaware about his abilities that he can't do it. So that's another tough thing. But one thing that I wanted to mention with regard to what Nathan was saying about how to have this balancing act, and I've been sketching this out for a while now. And there's a couple of leaders in the organization that work in. There's 5,000 people in this company, so it's a big old company. And there are, I think, levels to leadership that leaders need to have with relationship to the people that serve under them. And there's basically 4 levels that I think are appropriate. And it's like approachable, acquaintance, friend, and advisor. If a leader has at least one of those relationships with all of his people, then I would think that he's a successful leader. Being approachable is like the base, like that. You should be approachable for all the people that follow you. Anything outside of that, that's when I think that your leadership starts to turn poor, when people feel like you're not approachable, or you're the guy that no one wants to see run by his desk. That any of those 4 levels, I think you're hitting it out of the park. But beyond that, I think that you need some more work. So I'm still sketching that kind of 4 level approach out, but I think there might be some value to it.
I love that because, and actually, I'm taking notes because I think I'm going to mention that when it comes to showing yourself friendly. I think approachability is a large part of that. Showing yourself friendly doesn't mean that you're just friends with everybody and you have this deep, mile deep relationship with everybody. Like, it's impossible to have that type of relationship with everybody, right?
Right.
But that approachability, showing yourself friendly, like when you walk into a room, and let's say it's a party, okay? It's a party and you just don't know that many people there. It might be a neighborhood get-together, whatever. Within probably 30 seconds to a minute and a half who the friendly people are in the room.
For sure.
Because they're approachable, right? They're the ones that see you standing there and they go, oh, hey, who are you? No, hey, let me introduce you to people, right? That's approachability. And again, you're looking for value. And it's not, I think some people view, especially in business, and this is where it gets us in trouble a lot in business. We feel that we have to have these just, if I can't do it right, if I can't have this deep, meaningful relationship with everybody in the company, then I'm not going to have relationships with anybody because people get jealous, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I think that if you have that level of approachability where people know you are approachable and that you are trying to look for value where you can, it's an amazing eye opener, and I really hope people grasp that and hold on to it, because nothing is more fulfilling. And I didn't really touch on this in the talk, but nothing is more fulfilling than being able to connect 2 people because you know them and you help them add value to both of them, even if it adds 0 to you.
Right. Yeah.
But it's so fulfilling. I tell the story in my talk. I tell the story a lot as kind of a reference point, but I was a major gifts fundraiser, so it was my job to go out and try to raise money for an organization. It was a military nonprofit, so I would travel around a lot. And a big part of my job was just listening to people's needs, and at least that's how I felt. And so I was out in Oklahoma meeting with a guy who owned a company, and they basically made pipes. Long story short, they made pipes. And then I was at another meeting in Dayton, meeting with another business owner, and he starts talking about how he's having a big problem finding pipes. And so I got them connected together, and they started doing business together. Now, I didn't make anything off that. I don't even think they increase their giving to us. Like, it's not one of those stories like, oh, if you connect other people, then they'll add value into you. But I can't think of another time in that era of my life that was so more fulfilling than being able to connect others. But again, it was that accessibility, and it was looking to add value. Like, who do I know that adds value? And now we all have friends like this, and they're the best people to be around, right? Because if they can't help you, they're always trying to find somebody else to help you. Mm-hmm. And then they'll start coming to you and say, hey, I have an apartment for sale. Do you mind looking out? If you hear anything, let me know, right? Or, hey, I have this particular need. And then you're talking to them and they go, oh, I know somebody that can help you out, right? Now, I think sometimes we begrudgingly call this the old boys network, or the good old boys network, right? And we think there's some kind of like secret cabal that's trying to keep all this value to themselves. And that's not it. Because these folks who are geared that way are helping out whoever they meet and come across. And if you're able to grasp that in your own personal life, it's going to be so fulfilling for you to be able to say, I'm accessible, I'm friendly, I want to add value to you, even if it doesn't provide value to me. And you're going to see your relationships deepen just by you taking those small steps. Now, on the just to kind of wrap up the we were talking about the wrong seat on the wrong bus concept. My church has recently had to go through this. We let our pastor go, and it was a master class in humility on behalf of the pastor, because we had a Q&A with the congregation, and he basically said, hey, you know what? I have the deacons identified some leadership areas of my life that I wasn't sufficient in, and we've just come to the conclusion that I'm not able to be sufficient in these particular areas to help out the church. It was a master class in humility and honesty. And that exact same day, I got in my memories on Facebook something I had posted 3 years earlier to the date. And this is what it said. It was a quote from Entree Leadership. We talked about them before. It said, letting an employee languish on the wrong seat on the wrong bus isn't caring. It's cowardly. And it's very prescient. It was very prescient because we were going through that same thing as a congregation that exact day. But it's very vital. It's true. Sometimes caring is doing something that's unpleasant. And so that's a part of that dynamic as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I like that. I'm excited to explore that a little bit deeper. Maybe after the leadership series, we can kind of walk through the different levels of relationships from the employee manager perspective.
Yeah. Yep. I think you're right on that. Right on. All right.
I will say one thing. I'm very excited to see the leftists tweet you about the wrong seat on the bus, thinking that they're going to turn that into a Rosa Parks situation. Sometimes you just need to get off the bus, that Nathan said. He was talking about the civil rights in 1957, not a leadership summit. So
that's, yeah.
At Nathan Martin 25.
All the times I get misquoted there. Yeah. Come at me. All right. Speaking of coming at me, if you do want to come at me, you can come at me at Nathan Martin on Twitter, or you, of course, can reach out to us on all the socials at Money Power Pod. And Jeremiah, we actually had some pretty good feedback. So why don't you lead us in that?
Yeah, so a couple people hit us up on Facebook. One was Jacob Hatcher, as it relates to our leadership series. He had a couple thoughts about one he mentioned was consistency in leadership being pivotal to success. The idea of consistency and leadership, definitely something that would be worth discussing as a discussion topic as we move on. And then another one I thought was really interesting is no employee or worker is so good a worker that standards do not apply to them. Yeah, it's a really good point. We've all seen it where, it's the kind of trope of the star salesman that, maybe they're not the most the person with the most integrity, but hey, they make those sales one way or another. And yeah, so that's definitely a interesting discussion point. Standards being applied evenly across the board.
I'll just want to touch on that real quick.
Sure.
My retort to that would be, if standards don't apply to that worker, they're not a good worker. And if your culture is such that you don't identify that worker as a poor performer based off of those standards, and you're, in other words, you're measuring the wrong things,
right,
at that point, right? A lot of this comes to, when it comes to metrics and what you do, like, you have to measure what actually matters. We've done that. I've done this before with other groups, and we sit down and we're like, okay, here's our metrics, and I'd be like, okay, well, if we are saying X, Y, and Z matters, then we're setting forth an incentive that is going to destroy this other thing that we've been saying all along is valuable to our company, right? So, for example, in sales, if your metrics on sales, the dollar amount they're bringing in is the absolute only thing that a salesman is measured on, and you're not measuring them on customer satisfaction or customer renewals or other things, then you're measuring the wrong things. Right. And you're setting yourself up for a salesman who's going to do everything to hit those numbers and leave your company in a dire strait.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. Is profit the ultimate goal of a business? And if it is, that is going to affect the culture in ways that that we're talking about. It's going to lead to things that might lead to profits, but short-term profits,
yeah,
but might not actually end up being long-term service or long-term mutual benefit to the customer or to the client.
So a good example of this, I was working at a Fazoli's. I was a manager at a Fazoli's. It's a fast food Italian restaurant for those who aren't familiar with Fazoli's. I was a manager. And one of our things is that we really push customer service, right? And that meant giving them extra breadsticks. They got free breadsticks out in the dining room, extra breadsticks. Well, we had a manager come in who was very conscious on cost. And so he said, listen, I don't care who it is, the most that we're going to give breadsticks, we're going to give one breadstick at a time. One breadstick at a time, because I don't like to throw away breadsticks, okay? Now, our customers were all accustomed to getting two at a time. Now they're getting one at a time. And they're like, hey, can I have another one? And our employees are saying no, right? And so probably I was young and not doing what I didn't toe that line. And I basically, on my shift, I told my employees to ignore that rule. It set up some conflict with the general manager, and I probably didn't handle it the best as I could, but I was younger. But I said, no, our customers are number one. It says in our handbook, our customers are number one, right? And if they don't come back, it doesn't matter what our food cost is at the end of the day, because that's going to be inconsequential, because none of us are going to have jobs, right?
Right.
I ended up being on the wrong seat on the wrong bus, so I got to move to a different restaurant. Where I was able to work for another manager who held those similar values, and it was better for everybody involved. But it was very difficult for me to be in that environment where, okay, we're portioning these little cups and we're charging 50 cents for a cup of sauce, and it's like, you know what, if someone felt they were gypped on the sauce on their spaghetti, give them an extra souffle cup. Make it right. Is it really? No, you have to charge them 50 cents. Like that kind of. So yes, you can't. whatever you're measuring, whatever you're valuing, your culture is going to match that. And you can say it. You can say, "Oh, I love my customers," but your actions are going to speak louder than those words. And there's a difference in you feeling that you value your customers and your customers feeling valued. So, anyways, that was a long term on that. Consistency in leadership. We're gonna be getting into that later on in the series.
Absolutely. So then Tony Vance reached out to us on Facebook and said that he was a little behind, but he was going to binge our episodes. He said, this was, I think, an episode or two back. He said halfway through the last episode, Rob's on fire, MASH is
right
life.
We can stop right there.
He said MASH is life. Nathan knows his stuff. The leadership stuff spot on. And Jeremiah is just my hero. So a little bit of feedback for each of us. But then he went on to say in another comment, he said, question, when will the Money and Power Institute of Leadership be available? In all seriousness, Nathan's stuff would make a killer curriculum, secular or sacred.
That's a good question. If you would like me to give my talk, I'm more than willing to. Have talk will travel. So hit us up on Money Power Pod on all our socials, and we'll get you in touch.
That's right. So we really appreciate all the feedback, and keep the questions coming, keep the comments coming, and feel free to hit us up on social media, but also hit us up, moneypowerpod@gmail.com, if you have any questions, comments, snarks, or complaints.
Yeah, all comers. So, all right. Now comes the part of the show, parting shots.
Nice, mixing it up a little bit.
Nice.
Like that?
I was about to say, did we get a complaint?
No.
Mothers against firearm sounds.
I'm just playing with this soundboard. There's some pretty neat stuff in here. A little glass breaking.
Oh, like that.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Rob,
There's
what is your parting shot?
I got one more sound. This is the sound of disappointment in a child's life. How's Dad leaving?
Well, at least he took the beater with him.
Yeah, that job is transactional. It's not relational. Just want to point that out.
Yeah, he wasn't even an acquaintance.
You know who's against this segment altogether? Mothers Against Parting Shots, or MAPS.
Whoa, maps.
Yeah,
Very nice.
they suck.
All right, Rob, what's your parting shot?
Yeah, so I started reading a book this week, which is very good. I'm about 60% into it, and it's called The President is Missing. This is by the notorious Bill Clinton and James Patterson. This is a book that's been touted by, I think, everybody. Like, everyone is sharing it, even though they haven't read it. They're like, it sucks or it's great, and I don't think most people have read it. It's actually very good. I think Bill Clinton probably just sat there and was like, that's a good idea, James. While this was going on, I really don't think, it says terrible impression, but I really don't think Bill wrote most of the book. Maybe he did, but it is good. It's actually really, really quite good. I'll probably finish it up tomorrow, but one thing that is interesting is it does get a little political. I mean, it's a politically driven book, but you can definitely tell they wrote a character in it who is exactly like Trump. He's like a prime minister from another country, and one of the quotes was like, he told people what they wanted to hear. He was very honest, and he got a lot of votes from the middle class. So it's like you just wrote a character for Trump and put him in there. And then another one too was there's like this scene where he's just kind of walking. He's walking from one building to another, and the scene is not needed at all. But apparently there's like two white cops, and they have this black guy on the ground. And he's like pontificating on whether or not the cops are going to shoot him wrongly or not. And it's like, come on, guys. This is completely ridiculous. It has nothing to do with the book, the scene. It's not even a needed piece of dialogue, but it's in there. he's like, I wonder if this is just going to be another statistic of a black man being unarmed, shot by the police. I'm like, what in the hell is going on here?
So there was a recent interview that I saw with President Clinton and James Patterson, and Clinton is talking about the hashtag Me Too movement.
Yeah, I saw that.
And if you watch the video, James Patterson is to the side, and just the look on his face is just priceless. It's just like, all right, come on, Bill, let's move on. Different topic, please.
You can see the look in it, like the angst in his eyes. He's just like, I know I'm contractually obligated to do these books, like this book tour, but like this is painful.
Yeah, this is not what I signed up for.
Nobody in these interviews is talking about the book at all. They're talking about Bill Clinton and the Me Too movement.
Yep.
Wow.
But yeah, so I recommend it. It's even if it ends poorly, I think like the first 60% is good enough to read it anyhow. It's actually pretty gripping. I've never read any James Patterson, but it's he did nice work so far.
All right, Jeremiah, what's your parting shot?
All right, so I've got a clip that Rob, if you can cue that up. But to give a little context, I saw this a couple days ago. So Ariana Grande just released a new song called "God Is a Woman," and the music video. I don't know if it's worth recommending. This is for sure not a recommendation. This is. This is it's kind of like a train wreck that it's just terrible. It's awful, but you can't look away. So Rob, cue up that.
Real quick, how long do you want me to play this train wreck for?
Just like that 10 or 15 seconds until the end.
You will know.
You'll know what we're getting at.
All right, very good. Here we go.
I feel it after midnight, a feeling that you can't fight my one. It lingers when we're done. You believe God is a woman. I tell you all the things you should know.
What?
Okay, so I'm gonna. I was about to say I'm gonna provide some context. There really is no context to that.
None.
So the video is God is a woman, and it is basically saying. I mean, realistically, it's not even saying that God is a woman. It's saying that basically her sexual prowess is so advanced that at the end of her sexual exploits, you'll believe that she is God because of her because of her sexual prowess.
That's deep.
And
That's
it's just riddled with sexual innuendo and euphemism, and it's just all sorts of women being in different stages of undress. But then about partway through the video, there's just this. It's groundhogs that pop out of the ground and start screaming. So that's what you heard there was groundhogs apparently, and it is as random as it sounds, and I don't know what to think. I'm dumbfounded. I am.
The best are the YouTube clips, because there was a debate on whether they were screaming beavers or screaming groundhogs.
I'm pretty sure it's a beaver. I'm like 90%. Hashtag
It
it's
looks
a beaver.
it looks like a Muppet.
It does. It looks like, you ever
it
seen
looks like-
Caddyshack where
Yeah.
Yes.
where the gopher is
Yes,
taunting them?
If the gopher screamed like whatever that was, yes, that would be it. So that's my parting shot. Just that music video is terrible, and there's just a random scene with a groundhog / gopher / beaver, and I don't know what to think. But ladies and gentlemen, this is pop culture. So congratulations. America.
I'm going to tack on one more thing. There's a part in the video, so I'm going to give you the timestamps, listeners. If you want to just get right to business, 1 minute 37 seconds is where the beavers come out, and at 2 minutes and 19 seconds. Stop
And the
it,
Muppet
Nathan.
variety.
Stop it, Nathan. And the Muppet variety. Exactly. No safe search content needed here. At 2 minutes and 19 seconds, she's wearing 3 wolves that are animated. So she's got the entire animal kingdom rocking on this video. The video is confusing. I am surprised that you drew what the actual meaning of the video is, because she's so dynamite that people think she's God. It cannot be based off her singing. Cannot be. Like, at least this video. I mean, she's a very talented artist. I've heard her sing without any of this auto-tune nonsense. But it cannot be because of this song that people are like, oh my goodness, you're so amazing. It's like, no, not with this clip, Mariana.
Yeah. It is an interesting video, to say the least. I wouldn't waste your time on it. But there are screaming beavers in it.
Yeah.
And I think we definitely need to get a parody Twitter account of Ariana's screaming beavers.
I will say Cassie Lucia on YouTube, she's got it down in all caps, like my mom kind of writes on used to write. She's gotten better, but in all caps, Cassie says, "Why does everyone think that's a beaver? Beavers don't live underground in the desert." What? She's got it.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's the biggest problem with the video. That's the what is beavers in the desert. What?
Yeah.
No.
That's actually the least confusing part of that entire thing.
If you have time, just scroll through the YouTube.
The
comments.
the point of the video where she's singing below stilettoed legs that are spread open, but there's nothing but like a light door where the legs are. That was
a gigantic pair of legs, stilettos. Yeah. The whole thing is ridiculous. Definitely not a recommendation on my part. If there is a recommendation, it is for sure, as Rob says, to check out the YouTube comments, because they are quite humorous. But I mean, hey, she's got 27 million views on this, so
yeah. So we're just trying to get that cross section. We're trying to get Kylie Jenner's, Instagram followers, and we're trying to get her.
A majority of people seem to think that she's assuming God's gender, which is not cool, I guess, for those lefties. So she's taking some heat for that, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, God. Everyone can choose their gender except God, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get the shotgun. I'm gonna get the shotgun back out if we don't move on.
All right. So mine is just a little quip. So there is a new movie coming out based off of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life. It's called On the Basis of Sex, and it's about her life, feminism. It's all great. Anyways, so in the trailer, there's this one scene where she's arguing a case before some judges, and one of the judges snidely says, "Nowhere in the Constitution does it say woman." And then she snidely replies back, "Nor does it say freedom."
Ooh.
Oh, right. Well, there's a problem with that. Freedom is stated in the Constitution. It happens to be in the First Amendment. And it clearly states it. Freedom.
Love it.
But, so I actually saw, the first time I saw this was in a theater. And when she says that, there are people in the audience who were like, yeah. And I was like, oh. So anyways, but I say all that to say Ruth Bader Ginsburg in the movie doesn't understand the Constitution. Therefore, this movie is 100% accurate.
Very good.
So
I see people are calling the film the Notorious RBG, which makes me want to go see it.
oh, that's been her nickname for a while.
Oh, has it?
Yeah,
Okay.
Notorious RBG.
So I saw some pushback on the actress Felicity Jones playing the part. What was that about? Did you see that?
No.
Not that I want to comment on.
Was it
I mean,
'cause
I think
is
she's
she too
better looking than
attractive? Is that what it
RBG.
is? Well, I mean, RBG is
And
Yeah,
she
but I
does-
don't think that's
she does
what the
have
left-
this weird. She has this weird like Massachusetts. It's almost like Kennedy accent. I don't know if that's where Ruth originally hails from.
Ruth came from. She was born in New York City, New York. She's 85 years young, and she went to Harvard and Columbia. So I'm just looking at her Wikipedia page, and apparently she.
So
even in real
the
life,
accent appeared to me to be more like Kennedy, Massachusetts than New York. I guess.
Yeah.
That would be my quibble.
I mean, but it's like these lefties that are attacking her. I just saw a couple. I mean, yeah, it's outrage of the week. I just I didn't know
I can't keep track. I just know that, listen, freedom is in the Constitution. Woman is not. I don't know that it matters. We do have a 19th Amendment, so I don't know. But anyways, whatever.
All right.
I don't know that woman has to be specifically in the Constitution. It seems silly to me. But freedom is. Freedom's in there. Enjoy it.
I'll watch it.
Embrace
I'll review
it.
All right, give us a review for. Well, by the time you see it, it'll probably be like 2025.
2030. We're on episode 450. We will get a review from Rob.
And the cool thing is, Ruth Bader Ginsburg will still be on the Supreme Court. She'll be 110.
No, probably.
She'll be like Stephen Hawking throwing down dissents with
Spite
that
us
little
all.
keyboard.
My question is, at what point does she fall asleep and people just don't realize that she's actually passed away? Like, how long does it take before people are like, this is actually beyond the point of casual naps? You know, the normal? At what point do they just...
I just want to know what's more likely, is her to pass away or her to actually choose an African American clerk to help her out.
I don't get that reference.
Me either.
She has infamously never had a minority clerk helping her out.
Me neither.
So she doesn't believe in freedom in the Constitution, and she's racist, is what I hear you saying.
I mean,
All right.
I'm not casting aspersions on the notorious RBG, but just saying.
Listen, we Nathan reports, you decide.
Yeah, the truth is out there. You just have to try to find it.
Very good.
All right. So really appreciate our loving audience sticking with us through thick and thin and hour-and-a-half episodes. But it's really, really good. Thank you, guys. So for Jeremiah Martin, for Rob Johnson, I am Nathan Martin saying good night and good luck.
I got the money in the pile. Once you get a little, they just wanna take you down, cuz we've been going hard for too long. Can't get enough, what is you on?